the Rangers Journal now.
Good evening, everyone. Sorry about tardies tonight. We've got a couple of technical difficulties. Thursday, the 11th of September, just a couple of days away from a Saturday kickoff at 3 o'clock at Ibrox, which is a novelty these days. So, looking forward to that. Before I introduce our guest tonight, I just want to open the show. There was an announcement earlier on with our former players. The conductor, Graham Roberts, has announced that sadly he's going to go through a battle with prostate cancer and he's going to go through some quite lengthy treatment. So I just want to say on behalf of the Rangers Journal, and I'm sure the wider Rangers family abroad and domestically, that we're very much get Graham in our thoughts, and we wish him well and hope he gets back to fitness soon and gets well and gets through this. We really do wish that he overcomes this and he's forever in our thoughts with us. Dino, how are you getting on, mate?
I'm good, thank you, buddy. How are you?
I'm doing fine, mate. Doing fine. For those that don't know, Kev, is this your debut tonight?
No, mate, I've been on this for about a year, to be fair. I think that's the first I've been on with you, though. But I'm good, mate. I'm looking forward to the game of the weekend, mate. It's been a lifetime.
I'm usually on a Monday, so I'm usually on at the start of the week. So I've stepped in today. There's been a couple of call-ups, so I've been drafted in late substitution. Mitch, you don't need any introduction. How are you keeping, mate?
I'm good, mate. All the better for seeing your beautiful face.
This is it. I'm not getting through my face there, no. I'm all right.
No, just like Kev, your face is naked.
That's it. Well, guys, it's a Q&A, this one tonight. So, as it usually is on a Thursday night, so we're wanting to get as many comments as we possibly can and get some good questions and ask these guys some difficult questions. The more difficult they are, the better. And I'll try and get through them all as best I possibly can. We've got a wee kind of, as always, coming up to the weekend, we hold a wee vote within the group chat and what we think the team's going to be. I'm going to come to you first of all on this, Dino. Is there anything that you can see in that team? Is that reflective of what your votes were? Is there anything that you would have questioned? Anything you'd like to have changed?
You wouldn't be playing Suter for starters for me. I would, to be quite honest with you, I would probably put Giga in there. Just purely the fact that I just think with a better centre half with him, with a left foot, I think he'd be a better player than Suter. Probably the rest of the defence and the goal, you're not going to change anything else there. Cornelius has to start due to the fact is that we've been crying out for balance for so long, and he's coming off the back of a good goal and stuff, so be fully confident and want to make his mark in the Rangers team. In the midfield, I wouldn't be playing Diomande at all. I'd be playing Lyle Cameron in there, and the front three, I wouldn't have any different there.
Brilliant. Kev, we'll come to you, mate. Do you think this is a wee bit harsh on Conor Barron? Obviously, the arguable man of the match performance in the last game against Celtic. Do you think this is a wee bit harsh on him, mate?
Potentially. I thought Barron was probably one of the better players. I thought Diomande was up there, to be fair, as well. I think the only thing I would probably change, I think personnel-wise, it'd be bad the money for me, but I'd probably just change our shape slightly. I'd go with the 4-2-3-1. I thought that worked better in the old firm. I think it would be more suitable again for this weekend. I think from what we've seen at Russell Martin so far, this 4-3-3 just doesn't seem to be working in the league. So I would like a bit more protection for the back four. Maybe just see Diomande slipping back alongside Raskin with Asgard just ahead of them. You could make a case for Diomande, but I think if you look at the actual 11 there, it's probably our strongest 11 as it stands. I think Asgard, he needs to start, I think, after scoring 4 goals midweek in the space of like 15 minutes or whatever it was. I think it'd be harsh to not see him starting. Hopefully this could be where he can kickstart his Rangers career as well.
Brilliant, thanks, mate. Mitch, where are you on this? Have you any opinions?
I wouldn't go too far away from what's there, I'll be honest with you. I think ideally I would have liked to have maybe seen Chermiti in there, but I think that's just with the outlay. But again, we don't quite know where he is at the moment in terms of fitness expectations, but he's also had 2 weeks with the team now to bed in, obviously during the international break. I know obviously half the team have been away obviously in international duty. I still think there's potentially a case for Bajrami somewhere in there, maybe in place of Diamande if you were going to take Diamande out. I think Bajrami's one of these mercurial creatures, I think, where when he's hot in form, and he's been in pretty good form since the start of the season, it'd be nice to see what he can bring to the table. I think that current midfield three is quite a nice blend between them as well. Of Nico's quite happy to play in that 6 role, but also pull forward. But equally, if he goes forward, you also know that somebody like Diamandi's quite happy to pull back and fill in there as well. I think young Connor Barron's probably a victim of his own success to a certain extent. Of he put in such a good performance in the Old Firm, but equally you have to put your best player in there right now. But if you're Connor Barron, you're coming off the bench, you've got a chance to put somebody's shirt up for grabs at that point.
Sorry, struggling to come off mute there. Yeah, I have to agree with you, mate. I think there's definitely some questions on this. I personally don't see Nico Raskin coming straight back into the team. I think he's going to have to work with the manager to try and prove his place. But I do still believe he is the best player at the club. I think he's probably our most valuable asset. But I do think there's going to have to be a bit more water on the bridge there before you actually see him come in and start a game. Dino, do you think this one? This, for me personally, I think this is last chance saloon for Russell Martin on Saturday. I've very much believed that his coat is on the most sugariest peg possible at this moment in time. And any other drop points, especially at Ibrox, would probably signal the end of his managerial career with this. Would you agree with that?
Aye, it's definitely a high probability. Should have been sacked before now. However, he's not been, and I think, to be devil's advocate, if he doesn't get a win on Saturday, and I think with the cup game around the corner, obviously they're wanting to have as much silverware at the club as possible, so they could maybe stay in the job until the Hibs game, given that it's a cup in to get a credit in the bank. But I wouldn't be surprised if he's sacked Saturday night, Sunday morning type thing. Definitely.
Kev, are you on board with that?
I think so. I think there's a lot of pressure on Martin already. Coming off the back of the winter break, I know there'd have been a lot of people that was wanting Martin out and they thought this was a perfect opportunity to get him out. I think it's so important we get this first win of the season. To start putting the pressure on to try and push again to get to top of the league, especially with everything that's going on over the other side of the city at the moment. But I think this it could be potentially nailing the coffin stuff for Martin if we were to go and drop points again this weekend. It's already been our worst start to league in, I think it was, like 50 odd years. So I think it's imperative that we go and get a win as well as a good performance this weekend. Can I just come back in there, Ryan? I just think it's a sad state of affairs that we're in, where we're all of a generation where we grew up, teams feared coming to Ibrox. Now we're actually fearing teams coming to Ibrox. That's a really sad state of affairs for us as a whole. Really, not the mentality, that culture that needs to do a 180 as quickly as possible. Because it is a sad state of affairs where we're sitting talking about our manager getting sacked on Saturday because we don't think that Hearts are going to come in to, lie down to us, which no team would do. But the point I'm making is they're going to come smell blood, rub their hands, and really believe that they're going to beat us. And that just is, as I say, is a sad state of affairs for us.
Yeah. Mitch, I'll come to you with this comment. Neil Anderson thinks that Hearts are going to sit back at times and try and hit us quickly in the counter-attack, probably dominate possession, which we have done in most of the games we've played. Even though we've been drawing games, we still seem to be getting to dominate with possession but not really doing anything with it. I see the likes of Braga and Shankland set pieces there. Have you got these similar concerns? What do we need to do to beat Hearts on Saturday is what I'm asking.
You can have 80-90% of the ball all game long, but it's what you do with it. You need to make the other team work, pull them out of position. You need to make them sweat. You need to make them feel uncomfortable. And I think that's something that we probably did a bit better in the Old Firm, but again, still huge areas to improve in terms of actually, put ball in net, from open play and take shots towards the goal. I think the problem that we've got, not so much the problem, but I think the thing that we've all got in the back of our heads is it's that high line and the high press that we've got out the back. I don't want to be sitting seeing. I don't need to see our two defenders sitting like hugging the halfway line with somebody like Braga who's got a good set of heels on him. They can quite easily go and break that line and go and burst through it, because in all honesty, it kind of gives you a wee bit of kind of heart and mouth material. But equally, what I want to see from us and what I expect to see from us, especially given the fact that Russ Martin's now had 2 weeks with the players, both new and existing players, to drill in exactly what's went wrong up to now, and also had 2 weeks to rectify that with the players that are still, that have stayed at home. And I think that's up to him to now prove his credentials as a manager and say, well, you told us during the first few weeks it was agent talk that's unsettled people. It's been this, it's been that, it's been all various bits and bobs. Well, the window's shut, so you told us when the window's shut, the team that we would have would be a much different and a much better team. Well, prove it. Put your money where your mouth is. And that's not just on him, that's also on the players. Earn your wage. Get out there, play to the best of your ability, and earn the wage that we are paying you. You're on mute, mate.
Thank you. Kev, I'm going to come at you on this one. Given that both sides of the Old Firm are a wee bit of disarray, I think it's fair to say at this moment in time, are Hearts realistic title contenders? Are they actually in this title race?
Nah, not for me. I think we always seem to have one team that look as though they're going to be within a title race. Last year it was Aberdeen. Hearts have been there before as well. I think a couple of seasons ago, Hearts had a fantastic start to the season. They've started well this year. I think coming into the season, the gap between second and third place will still be around about the same. It'll be 15 points plus. I think some teams can have a good start. I think Hearts' recruitment is in a decent space. I know they've got a new owner in place or shareholder in place, Tony Bloom, who's obviously going to make a positive difference to Hearts, but I just don't think it's going to be enough to topple both ourselves and Celtic. I'd obviously like to see them maybe break the Old Firm if we were to obviously be champions and they were to come second. That would be great, but I just can't see it. I think Hearts will comfortably finish third this season, but I just can't see them even finish second. Never mind actually going and winning the title, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. I would see Hibs more in the race rather than Hearts. But the thing that Hearts have got in their favour over Hibs is that they've not got any kind of European football. I think Hibs out of Europe now after they lost the Legia. They're finished, aren't they? Yeah.
Hibs are out of Europe. And probably just to add one thing as well, I think, although we've not started well, it's going to eventually start clicking. Hopefully that starts this weekend. I think things will start to click into place. I think we've got a real strong squad. Can maybe argue to say we've got the strongest squad in the league, even including Celtic at the moment. So I think if we can start just picking up points, we will start to perform well, and I think we will go on a good run. Whether that's with Martin or with a new manager that comes in, I think it will eventually start to click into place. I think we've got a right good strong squad now with a lot of options for the bench. So I think we just need to start seeing things click, and I think we'll be absolutely fine. Yeah. Although it doesn't feel like that right now.
Speaking of making things click, there was one guy that caught the eye of the Rangers fans during the week there, and it was Taylor Asgard, obviously scoring 4 goals for his national team, which is incredible. Where do we need to use this guy? We've used him as a false 9 against St Mirren away. He's quite a quiet but believably effective. I'd like to believe an effective game against Celtic where he was kind of sitting on Callum McGregor. He's been used as kind of introduced in the kind of wide left position. He's big, he's tall, he's physical, but where do you see him fitting into this team? Where are we going to get the best out of him?
Did a pod with a Luton supporter about Asgard, and I actually pretty much asked him that question about where's the best place that we can play to get the best out of him. And pretty much where he's not getting played at Rangers and where he's obviously getting played for Norway. So it's the whole, like, again, it's, you know, giving a player the freedom to play how they can, to show what they can do. There's a lot of restrictions within Martin's setup for our players, for our attacking players especially. So I think unless he gets the shackles off him, we're not going to see him, unfortunately, replicate that form for Norway. And, you know, how are we going to set up? Are we going to go back to a 4-2-3-1 like we did against the other side of the city, or are we going to stick to the 4-3-3? So, my opinion, he needs to be central. So you've got to think he's got to be in more advanced. That's what I'm saying. It's that 4-3-3, quite restricted in terms of what they can do. So that's the hindrance. Unfortunately, I don't think we're going to see the best of him whilst Russell Martin is our manager. To be quite honest with you, you know, signed these, I guess, bigger players, taller players to come into our squad, to utilise them in that respect, and we're not really doing it. Do you know what I mean? So him being big and strapping it is kind of, they could be, you know, be like Ridvan right now. That wouldn't really making any difference in terms of that. So, hopefully that does change, but I can't see it changing under Russell Martin.
Yep. Mitch, Dino's mentioned there about, you know, not getting the best, you know, removing the shackles from players, which it's going to be difficult under Martin. Scotty's asked a question, which is a difficult question. It's maybe a wee bit of a stirring question, is would we win the league this year under Steven Gerrard? Would he give the players, the personnel that we've got, the freedom that they need to express themselves that would create a title-winning team?
In all honesty, no. And I'm just going to nail that down, and kind of one simple answer is no. Everything that he's done in his managerial career since leaving tells you it's been a relative abject failure up to now. You know, and you look at that of went to the riches of Villa, didn't go very well. Went to the oil leagues, again, handed an unlimited checkbook, and again, still didn't do it out there either. And I think, in all honesty, a lot of people have got the short-sightedness, and we spoke about it before, of obviously if it wasn't for COVID, they'd have been out of job. You know, so let's not kid on that he's, the saviour of football. You know, he's really not. Like, I think he built something that was potentially special here. He completed the beginning, middle, and end of his chapter, and that book should be closed now. And by all means, pop by to watch a game, but you know, there'll always be a seat there for him to watch a game, but not in the dugout.
Yep. Kev, do you want to argue against that? Are you with that?
I'll be honest. I think Gerrard would do better than what Russell Martin's doing at the moment. I think he would give us a good opportunity to win the league. I do understand Mitch's point where he's saying that he's not particularly done well in other clubs he's went to. But I think sometimes some managers are just more suited to managing Rangers. I think it's just a different type of club to come into. You could have that argument at the other side of the city as well. They've got managers that have done well for them, but just haven't really done the job when they've left. So I think Gerrard would come in. I think what you talk about, what he brought real strong standards, good style of play, could see what we're trying to do progressively. We're getting better. And Gerrard would have definitely won the league the season. He did end up leaving early. I think he had his 9 points clear, and we were in a right good place, and we're maybe not playing the best of football, but we're winning games. So I think Gerrard could come in and do a job, and he could get us winning the league again. Not that I'm writing the season off. I think Scotty asked earlier as well if he thinks we would win the league. I still think we can win the league. I think it's a good opportunity to go and win the league if we can just start winning games. But I definitely think Gerrard would make a difference, and I think if the opportunity arises, if it doesn't work out for us or Martin, I think Gerrard would be one of the top picks for me.
Yeah. I need to kind of step in and defend him here when Mitch is like, not just yourself, Mitch, but other people say that when he left Rangers, he was a failure. It couldn't be further from the truth. It's not right. That's not true. He went to Aston Villa, and things maybe didn't work out at Aston Villa as well as what he liked to, but there's no coincidence that Aston Villa were in the quarterfinals of the Champions League just a couple of years after he left, after the foundations that he'd laid. So Unai Emery did pick up a decent team, much like Gio Van Bronckhorst picked up a decent team to Rangers to the Europa League final. His job out in Saudi right now, everyone seems to think he had a disaster out in Saudi. He didn't, right? His job when he went out there was to basically establish an old Saudi football team who historically were champions of Saudi way back in the 80s. They're not the richest club out there, so when you're saying he had an unlimited checkbook, he didn't. There's a reason why he's signing Jack Hendry, Moussa Dembele. There's the reason why he's going out and asking his pals like Gigi Wijnaldum to go out there and play. He didn't have the unlimited checkbook. He was asked to go out there and establish a club, create a training ground, set expectations, hire staff. And he done it fine. He done it okay. And he basically got to stabilise what he was meant to do. He's never going to compete with Al Ittihad, Al Hilal. These teams are like Barcelona and Real Madrid compared to the likes of ourselves. The team that he was managing are so far down the food chain in Saudi football, it's unreal. So he did okay out there. He was done what he was asked to. He was asked to go out there and establish a football club and bring Western expectations in there. So I feel as if I need to defend the guy because I think he did a good job for us and obviously delivered a fantastic season for us that won the league.
I will say, mate, and I'm going to come back on that one, right? Just for anybody who thinks I have a pure burning dislike for him, I don't. Like, I will always respect and admire the job that he done here, but I think I've always had a bee in my bonnet in general anyway about managers going back to clubs. I think once you're done, be done. There's a reason why you left in the first place. And the cycle would then continue of, if he came back and he done well, we know what the eventual outcome looks like at the end, which is he's already proven that he would go to another league for a perceived bigger club at that point, whether that be in stature or league. And I don't really think you can do that twice and still hold the same credit in the bank when you do that. Equally, he had quite a lot to say on player transfers and things like that about not wanting and not letting certain players leave when Murray was right and stuff, and that plays its own part. And some of the mess that our transfer model's been under in the last couple of years with players like Alfie and things like that, and Ryan Kent and some of the wages that were getting paid. Now I understand that obviously he wasn't the one that sat down and went, right lads, here's what your contract's going to be. But equally, he knew what the budget was, what the playing budget was, and he said to the board, like, I'm cool with these players getting paid this amount of money. So I like Gerrard for what he was done, but it's a wee bit like, it's a wee bit like anything. I don't think you should be going back to an old manager at that point. It doesn't sit well with me at all.
I'm not going to hold the mic. I'm not going to hog the mic. I'm going to get you in a wee second there, right? Sean has written this up with Watersmith, right? Now, I've been saying to people that I'm drawing quite a few comparisons with the Le Guin situation. And remember, Le Guin obviously fell out with Barry Ferguson. Russell Martin's fallen out with Raskin. There's a lot of comparisons in the situation that we had with Le Guin and the situation we had with Martin, and the fact that it's just simply just not working and people just want him out the door. We can't afford to take another gamble on our manager. We need to reach out with a trusted hand, somebody who knows the club. Unfortunately, we can't call him Watersmith this time round, but we could call him Steven Gerrard, and we need somebody who can come in and steady the ship, who's going to come in and be able to hit the ground running, where there's no grace period, there's no bedding in period, that somebody needs to come in and basically just grab the place by the scruff of the neck. And I look at Gerrard in that light now. I'm not by any means saying that Gerrard is like Walter-Smith. Walter-Smith's a legend of the club, and he always will be. But we need to find somebody of that ilk who could come in. And you might point the finger at Barry Ferguson. I would argue that Steven Gerrard was more successful. But Dino, I'm going to come to you, and I'm going to try and change the subject away from this wee bit. We get fined during the week, another fine, because of pyro that's been brought into the stadium. Obviously, it was over in Bruges. And I seen it firsthand myself, and it was great at the time, but you knew it was going to come at a cost. And we've now been given a 2-year suspended, potential stadium ban for away fans going to Europe. Do you think this needs to get nipped in the bud? Where are we with this? Do you think this is something that the club need to take a stronger hand on?
I didn't even know that had actually happened, that we'd been fined until later on the day that I read it. My initial reaction is that this is it's been a long line of cases like this against us, and not that I'm pulling a victim card, but I think UEFA have got a soft spot for us when it comes to fining us, and really us getting in trouble from them. So we're in their backyard, we're under their rules. You've got to abide by them. It doesn't matter if you think it's great for the club or whatever. If UEFA, are basically saying to us, look, stop what you're doing, or you're going to be getting no fans at away games now. We all know how good the travelling Rangers support is. They'll be following near and far for a reason. Do you know what I mean? So there's a bit of blue smoke really going to be the be-all and end-all for us not being able to go to, anywhere in Europe to watch us. I don't travel away like a lot of the people do. I think I'd be pretty cheesed off if I was a travelling fan that, you spend your holidays for your work going and watching Rangers. Your hard-earned money, and then you can't go and do that for 2 years because the Pyros needs nipped in the bud. As I said, we're under UEFA's rules, so we've got to abide by them.
Yeah, Kev, where are you in this? It was I'm aware of people that have already actually booked up to go to the likes of Porto. There's guys that have booked their flights going to Norway and stuff like that, and it could quite easily be taken away from them by misconduct from other fans. Do you think that would be? Do we need to start holding certain groups of fans accountable for these things and possibly looking at, bringing in our own internal discipline procedures if we believe that things like that are happening, that, we're having to close parts of the ground that we believe that these supporters are housing themselves in? Is that something the club should be looking to do internally to deal with it?
I mean, potentially. Listen, I know that when you look at it in pictures and you're watching on the TV or whatever, it looks good, but I think Dino was right in terms of it's UEFA's party, it's their decisions. I think the board will definitely be looking at it because it's needless money that they're dishing out. Obviously, it'll be down to the board in terms of what decisions they want to make. I think it's probably a tough one because I think there's going to always be unhappy people regardless what step that the board takes. Did they not do anything? And then you've then got, like you said, people that have already got trips to Porto and Finland already booked up. They'll be unhappy if they get cancelled. If they decide to have a messaging in a certain group, they'll also get backlash from that. It must be a tough one. What I would say is I'm happy I'm not one that has to make that decision. But I know from a board's perspective, and if it was my club and you're looking at it going, do you know what, we are throwing away money for nothing around not following rules. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. We do seem to be picking up quite a number of these fines, which is far from ideal.
Yeah, I think we should just maybe leave it at that. Just remind everyone that we're all responsible collectively. Rangers fans, we all need to look after each other. And that. Doug, Mitch, here's an interesting question. Doug, the beard threw me, sorry. An interesting question, Doug. It's 2029. Martin McFly's in the time machine. And Rangers looking for a new front there. A front shirt sponsor. Who's the dream brand on the shirt?
Dream or realistic?
Dream. What's the word? He's asking who your dream brand is.
I think there's something quite fascinating about the Red Bull tie-in. And I think it's that brand when you look at it within a sporting context, not in a energy drink perspective or anything. Other energy drinks are available, just in case Scotty gets shouted at for that. But I think when you look at the success that the Red Bull Formula One team have had, the Red Bull teams throughout football have had, you look at pretty much everything Red Bull have touched in the sporting world is turned to gold. And I think having that, now the way that the sporting world's gone, I would say it's like that gold standard brand, where you'd be like, that is like the standard of excellence of, we are a strong, recognisable brand, and we're back to where we should be.
Brilliant, thank you, mate. Do you know one thing that's kind of been shelved and not spoken about in a while is the renaming of the stadium? And I think that's something that could potentially be up for grabs in the next kind of couple of years there. Do you have any kind of strong opinions, strong objections? Do you think it's just something that, if we sell it for 10 million quid and we sign a striker who wins the league and gets us into the Champions League, would it bother you that much?
Well, that's kind of actually my mindset on it. For years I was like, nah, you can't rename Ibrox, no chance, doesn't matter how much money. But you see, longer that we stay in the abyss, you can call it, from the rest of Europe in terms of money that we get from our league, we are going to need to get some other income of large amounts of money to be able to continue to compete even at the levels that we're doing, because the infrastructure our own league is pretty crap, and I can't see it changing anytime soon, where we're going to even be getting TV deals such as, even the lesser leagues in Europe. So I wouldn't be against the club renaming the stadium. Always be Ibrox to me, and us three here and every other Rangers fan we would always call it by Ibrox. But if it means, like you said, selling the naming rights for £10 million to get somebody that's going to get us into European football consistently, or Champions League football consistently, then nah, I wouldn't be against it anymore. As I said, years ago I would have been, but now I'm just like, we're going to have to be, I guess, trying to earn as much money as we can from other sources, because we're not going to get from our own league.
Yep, I agree with you, mate. It's basically, we need to monetise as much as everything that we possibly can. Even if we take the two sides of the main stand and we know the two parts, you walk up to the club deck and we wrap them, make them look like big cans of Red Bull, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, if it's money, it's money. So why not just go for it? Go for it. Kevin, one guy we haven't touched on, our second biggest transfer side, he wasn't actually really ever mentioned within this. When we go back to, I'll go back to this lineup again, just for people that have joined us again, what we think the lineup's going to be on Saturday. Chermiti's not mentioned here at all. We're obviously, everyone in the chat decided Majovski was going to be a better option there. Are you surprised at that, given the price tag? Do you think we'll maybe see him at some point during the game?
I think we'll definitely see him at some point. I think Majovski never done himself any harm. I thought in the Old Firm, I thought he worked really hard, and I think he's not played a lot of football either, to be fair, last season. But he probably does have a bit more of game sharpness than what Chermiti will. So I'm not surprised, I wouldn't be surprised if Chermiti doesn't start at the weekend, but I think we definitely will see him off the bench. And then it'll be interesting to see, unless there could be a surprise in there. There's a lot of talk around how we can maybe change up and go like a 3-5-2, play two up top. We never know what could happen. I've seen a few people are putting in there about going two up top. We might see both. But I think I'm excited to see him. I'm hoping that the fact that we've invested such a large fee, that there's got to be something in there in terms of potential. It's obviously the second time that I don't know why his name's escaped me. It's the second time anyway that he's obviously paid a high fee for him, once at Everton and once at
Kevin Thelwell.
Don't know, my mind blank after a long day today.
You forget your own namesake, mate.
I didn't know what you said there, mate. Sorry, mate. So I'm hoping that he's obviously sees some strong potential in there. So I'm excited to see what he's like and what he can contribute. He's a big lad, looks quick. It's just hopefully comes in and scores the goals. That's what we need our strikers to do. But I wouldn't be surprised if he does come off the bench. But you never know. Could be in for a surprise on Saturday.
Yep. Mitch, I'm going to pick your tactical brain here. There's lots of people asking about changes in formation and stuff. Shona was mentioning in the chat that she thinks we play better with two holding midfielders. This guy's calling for 5-3-2s, 3-5-2s. People asking what's the best formation. I think it's clear to say that it's not working as it is just now, but with Russell Martin's stubbornness, borderline arrogance, if you like, do you think that he'll have any kind of surprise changes for us in Saturday? Do you think he's going to mix it up a little bit, possibly try and get two strikers on the park at the same time? Do you think he'll be maybe looking at Asgard as a out-and-out 10? Does he go the back three now that Cornelius is there? Anything you think could possibly happen?
See, in all fairness, mate, the best formation is a winning formation. I don't care how we do it. Don't care what it looks like. Put ball in net, keep ball out net. That's all it needs to be. I don't care how it gets done. I think we might start the game in a similar fashion to what we've seen in terms of formation and that, but I think I wouldn't be surprised if we've seen him playing about with it a wee bit more if we can get, and again it's a big if at the moment, if we can get one or two to the good, inside the hour, at that point put the game to bed, but then at that point, go and play about with it. Go and have a look at, can we put 2 up top? What do we look like when we do 3 at the back? What do we look like when we do, I don't know, whatever the tacticians want to call it, a 3-1-1-3 or, an 0-1-4-1, whatever you're going to call it. Like, I don't really care. Like, as long as we win. That's where we're at. Like, I think this is the thing that this team in general needs. Doesn't need to be pretty. Doesn't need to be beautiful. We can work in champagne football after. Just win the fucking game.
All for it, mate. All for it. 1-0. Anything. Doesn't really matter. Let's just get a win. Let's just
Also,
get a
tell
win.
Scotty I'll put a fiver in the swear jar there.
That's okay. Rapport, thanks. We're not in Rangers, mate. Oof. Be great. Another one here that the show has mentioned. I think Sean had actually mentioned this. I'm going to come to you on this one, Dino. Mikey Moore, right? This one here. Discuss the pointless transfer of Mikey Moore. No doubt a great player. Yep, definitely got potential. I think we can all see that. But is he hindering the progress of Finlay Curtis? One of our own that's in the squad there. Do you think this is a good move, bringing team players, young players in from other teams to develop them for them? Should we be concentrating our own? And just how do you rate Moore so far? Do you think he's going to settle in well? My own personal opinion is I think he's still to arrive.
Aye, to be quite honest with you, I think because the starting wingers really have been Ant-Man and Gassam, and that's probably going to be the favoured two as we go on through the season as the first names on the team sheet. But I think if you're a good enough manager, you will get the best out of Mikey Moore and Curtis, both. Because a lot of football to be played. There will be injuries, there will be suspensions, there will be a lot of mitigating factors as to why I think that we're going to be needing both Finlay Curtis and Mikey Moore. What I will say on Finlay Curtis is, though, he has been unlucky not to have had more game time, given that when he's played, he's been very good, and he's also he knows where the net is, and that's something that as a team we're struggling to find. Didn't even muster a single shot on target against Celtic. Anyway, so I do think that Mikey Moore can be a good addition, given what's all been said about him. When he came in, all the Rangers fans were like, "Well, he's going to go to the top," and blah blah blah. So, and Mikey Moore's not came to obviously sit on the bench. There will be an agreement in there for him to play a minimum amount of games. But I think if you're a good enough manager, you can get the best out of Mikey Moore and Finlay Curtis both.
Yep. Gave a comment here from William here. Curtis deserves more game time. What do you think about that?
I probably agree. I think especially when you look at how poor we've been at the start of the season, and he's been maybe one of the only bright lights that we've actually had so far. You can't argue that he's not contributed. I suppose just to sort of tie it in with the Curtis thing, I can be a bit funny. I think with just these straight loan deals, I think it benefits us if they come in and they're guaranteed starters and they contribute massively. I think Cherny was a really good example of that last year, but it was probably a very low chance we were ever going to be able to sign him permanently, but we got him on loan and he sort of gave us the numbers that we needed. Not seen it yet from Mikey Moore, but I probably agree with what you're saying. I think he's obviously a really good player, and maybe we start to get the Cherny numbers as the season progresses and we start to play a bit better. But I think with Curtis, I would like to see him have got more minutes than what he's got so far. Do I think he should start? Yeah, I don't know. I think Gassam, sorry, should I say, is definitely a nailed-on start at the left wing position. And Ant-Man started really well, but he's been really quiet, so there's maybe an argument that Curtis could have come in off the right and maybe started a couple more games than what he has so far. But to be fair, I think Curtis has definitely been one of the best youth players that have broken for quite some time. And I think he's got an exciting future ahead of Rangers.
I'd agree with you there, mate. Mitch, a question for the gaffer, and it's not the one about your weight.
I don't worry, I'll see him for that after.
What did the panel think of, ask you first of all, the loan strategy from the club? Do you think we're signing too many loan players? Do you think this is a necessary evil during such a large rebuild? Obviously, keep an eye on financial fair play. Where are you on this?
you know, I think when you have such an aggressive overhaul like we have this summer, you can't buy everyone. There is only a finite pool of money, and you have to use that money and invest it well. How will we know if we've invested it well? Probably the next 18 months will tell us whether or not we've invested it well in terms of player sales, player development, and everything else that comes around it. I think when it comes to the loan strategy, there's also two things to look at with it as well. Of sometimes a loan's about building relationships with bigger clubs in terms of bigger leagues. You know, so we were talking there about the Mikey Moore situation. We are getting an 18-year-old youngster who the vast majority of his wages, etc., have been covered by his parent club, but at 18 years old, he's also a Europa League winner. We're not talking about some daftly 18-year-old that's still got like acne breaking out his academy. He's an 18-year-old UEFA Europa League winner. It's not like we're getting, as I say, an unproven talent, but there's also quite a lot of, as much as the loan fee might be high, there's a lot of upside in our part at that point, because we develop him well, we send him back a more accomplished player like we did with the likes of Ahmad in the past. That opens up a better pathway between ourselves and Spurs at that point. Same with Jigger, where we send him back down the road a better player than he arrived. Again, that opens up more opportunities in the future for us to, if we're being honest with you, the way that even that in the guts of how youth footballers are moving now, realistically, some of the top prospects are unaffordable, you know, by the time they hit 18, 19, because some of them are away down to, you know, your Aston Villas, West Hams, etc., for 16 to 20 grand a week, which realistically no 18-year-old is getting in Scotland. Like, being completely candid and upfront about it, nobody's getting that in Scotland, unless you are like the second coming of Yamal at that point. Then, of course, obviously a club will break the bank to give them what they can, but there will always be that cap that can be offered in terms of wages in Scotland that isn't offered down south. Obviously, that cap's much higher. It's probably 3-4 times higher than what it is here. So I think building those relationships, when it comes to then either them wanting to purchase one of our first team players, like we'll use Raskin, you know, as a prime example, there's a good open pool of relationship there to say, okay, so if you want transfer X to happen, we want X in return, not just in terms of financial, but in terms of we want our pick of, say, 2 players, 1 squad player and, you know, 1 top prospect youth to come up over the next 18 months. There's other things like that. You know, there's other things like that that can be built into those negotiations because the relationship's already there, which makes our player trading model tick nicer, because the relationships are already there and there's good friendly relations between the clubs. Would I like to have seen a couple of the players being permanent? Of course I would, just like everybody else. But equally, we've spent well, I think, where we've spent money. But players like Aarons, for example, this time next year he's in his contract year at Bournemouth. It was a try before you buy option with him, and so far, if at the start of the summer, before we knew it was a loan, if we said we'd bought Aarons for £6 million, most of us would have went, good solid transfer. However, based on the sample size that we've had already to date, that would have been a bomb scare. So right now, if being honest there, between the 4 of us, if I said to you, right, we're going to go and drop £6 million in Aarons tomorrow, I think every single one of us would be asking Kevin Fowler to go and see his doctor to go and get a sick note. You know, so I think, you know, you have to be honest about it at that point and say that is the purpose of the buffer, to protect the club, to say, well, we've not shelled out £6 million on him, or whatever the price might be. In the same way that, you know, that money then that we've not spent on him, we've went out then and bought Agassam, we've went out and bought Ant-Man for the same combined fee. And so far, based on the eye test, you could quite clearly say, well, they 2 are solid investments at this point.
Brilliant, mate. Thank you. Do you know, just a kind of general football question. It's just when Mitch is talking about boys going down south to 17, 18-year-old and earning 15, 16,000 pound a week. For me, that's insane amounts of money to be paying effectively children, if you like. These are just young men. Do you think across the board, maybe just a general kind of football thing, not necessarily Scotland, Britain, but maybe across the board in football, should there be wage caps for young guys? Are we spoiling our lives too early? Throwing riches and money. I'd shudder to think what the boy Jamal at Barcelona's on. We've seen guys like Pogba, such young guys getting money thrown at them. It's just, effectively a lot of times it turns them into idiots. You look at Balotelli, the stuff that goes on in his head has been pickled with money. But and I'm not saying they shouldn't pay the guys money, but possibly looking at getting the money kind of delayed, sort of, diverted to some sort of fund that they can get later on in life, because football is a short career that they only get paid. There's a cap on their wages at a certain age at a few £1,000s a week, and maybe that gives a better level playing field when it comes to players actually signing, younger guys. Do you think that's something that should get introduced? Is that I'm on to something here? Am I talking crap?
No, said this actually years ago, long time ago actually, when there was young players that were coming through, and a lot of young players and Scottish players, for example, and the money early on in their careers ruined the potential path that they could have taken. There's loads of cases even just in our country, loads of cases in England and stuff. So, I suggested years ago, can these players actually just, not get as much money and have somebody manage them? And I think that's also quite an important factor as well, having somebody there to actually help guide them and help them to, you're 19 years old, you're buying your house and, selling down, and, before you know, you're having kids and all the rest of it, but haven't really got a clue about how life works, because they've not really got much guidance there. A lot of people like that. So those two things, I think, is a definite thing. I think that football as a whole should look into for players, because, like you say, when you're earning that amount of money and you're young, your head's turned, and it's a shame, because when I was that age and I didn't know what life was all about, let alone what life was all about, earning 15 grand a week. That's quite a scary concept when you actually think about it. And then they're meant to go in a park and perform every week for thousands of fans. As I said, then it's a lot better now, management for younger players, but there isn't a real set up there for clubs to help young players, as I'm led to believe anyway. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you never hear of a club having a great guidance manager or anything like that to help young players out, especially the players that do move away from home to hundreds of miles away from their family and their friends. That's you do hear about it all the time. I was talking to somebody today, and it's kind of going off on topic today, but one of my customers, and it's going on about Gary O'Connor. And Gary was a phenomenal talent, and didn't really have the right guidance round about him, and we all know what happened there. So Derek Riordan as well was another one of that sort of, Corey players that I'm just using that as an example of players who probably could have went a lot further, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, okay. Mitch, you want to say something, mate?
I just wanted to come in and kind of just echo on the development side as well. I think what a lot of people forget is these young footballers, and it doesn't matter, there's no country bias here, but if you're playing at a good level as a young player, you are, as a person, you're growing up in a very synthetic environment at that point. You're not learning, you're not walking about with your pals in the street, you're not doing stupid stuff that all four of us have done in our lifetimes, and everybody watching have done.
Don't tab me with your brush.
Listen, I've got pictures of you trying to do the Murray, that's all I'm saying. You're lucky I've not got Doug to put it in a slide. But genuinely, these kids are growing up in a very, very synthetic, non-real world life. Their concept of 16-year-old you knew what you could do with 20 quid. 20 quid to these boys is 1,000 quid in their actual hand. it's quite a scary amount of money when you put it like that. And a lot of clubs had promised, and I think some have put in together pathways officers, which were meant to be the officers that are to guide players who don't make it out of the academies, and to give them like financial advice, put them onto training courses to go and be sparkies, builders, plasterers, tradespeople, or anything that they want to go and do. But still, there's a huge systematic failing of young players to protect them from when the time comes that they come out of that synthetic bubble that they've been in. Because they come in, and if you're an 18-year-old, 18-year-old me was a wonder kid, call it, but I just didn't quite have enough to make it in the first team at Rangers. What do I do when that dream's snapped away like that? But I'm still on $9,000 a week or $8,000 a week. How do you go from $8,000 a week to the brew? Do you get what I mean? That's the bit that football in general, and you know yourself, mate. You and I have spoke about this over different years now. Youth football is a huge passion of mine. Watching the players coming through from the academy level, breaking in, but I think wage caps, like having things like money get into the trusts, should be the norm, not just it should be the norm as opposed to the exception, where somebody should be looking after them. And I don't think it should be parents or a family member, because that opens up players to, and let's call a spade, some parents will financially abuse that. It should be put into a safe, well-vetted hedge fund or something for them, that when they get older, they have a protected pool of money that is theirs, with a financial advisor, a club-appointed financial advisor, that goes in and says, right now you have got X amount, to live off now, and your footballing career's done, so we're going to drip feed you as a salary for the next year until you get on your feet. But I went off on a slight tangent there.
Listen, you're fine, mate. You're fine. Listen, there's a wee bit of breaking news actually coming in. Yep. So I've got it. I think Shona was the first to break into the chat here, so we'll give her the credit for it. Raskin not in the squad for the weekend. Breaking news. Heart and Hand have tweeted it as well. It's all over STV News. Kev, come to you, mate.
It's far from ideal, isn't it?
I'm bringing up this Gwen Ferguson argument again, and I'm thinking Russell Martin, Nico Raskin. There's only one guy going to be here at the end of this, and it's not going to be Martin. It's not going to be Martin.
It's seeming that way. I think Raskin's probably seen that himself. The fact that he didn't want to move. There was a lot of rumours about teams that he'd not back from the Premier League as well over the transfer window. I think he probably sees his future lasting longer than Russell Martin's, and he's happy to play the waiting game. Interesting from Martin, but I think everyone was going to be sort of waiting in anticipation, thinking, is he going to go back on what his thoughts were and bring Raskin back in the team because he is the best player that we've got in the squad, or is he just going to continue to be stubborn and remove him from the squad altogether? And it seems to be that he chose the latter. I think it's probably a risky game that he's playing. I think not having your best player within a squad when you are struggling to win games or just aren't winning games, period. I think it's crazy. I'm surprised, but I don't even know why I'm surprised, if I'm honest. I think the fact that he bombed about the squad in the first place was ludicrous. But I thought he had the chance to redeem himself and have these talks and clear the air, and it was a good excuse to sort of go back on what your original statements were and bring him back into the fold. But the fact that he's sort of doubling down and not going to have him involved is wild. And talk about it was maybe a good way to try and get the slightest bit of leeway with fans back again by bringing them in. So I can only imagine with the atmosphere, you're probably going to get a lot more chance for Nico Raskin over the course of the game on Saturday. Interesting choice. And I suppose we'll just need to wait and see what that looks like on Saturday then.
Yep. Dino, I'll come to you with this one, mate. For me, it's crazy. But see, for whatever reason, which I think is even more crazy, why are we publicising this? Why are we making this public knowledge? All we've done is just helped Hearts' team talk. We've just basically given Derek McInnes what our midfield's going to look like. Why is this public?
So, until we know do we know where the the source came from. Was it the club that's came out and said that? Because I wouldn't actually be surprised if it wasn't leaked by Raskin himself, to be quite honest with you. I think that's maybe who the leak has been recently. So I don't think anybody official from the club's going to come out and say that. I could be wrong, but in terms of that 2 days before, I can't see it. However, what I will say is kind of on the back of what Kev said there, he's needing credit in the bank. He's all but lost the support. To then, for him not to even being in the squad, fair enough, not in the team, you understand that. Like, reasons that Kev alluded to earlier on, earn his shirt back in. Barron had a great game against Celtic, so it would have been, I guess, when you look at wrong for him to have been dropped. But Raskin definitely in the squad to then get an opportunity to come on around the 60th minute or whatever. But for him to not even be in the squad, he's just going to fall on his own sword. Russell Martin digging his heels in, not doubling down, tripling down. It's Maui, or it's that's quite. It's utterly pathetic at the end of the day that you're thinking that you can succeed at this football club, not play your best player, and have the arrogance that, like, that's only going to go one way, unfortunately, again. And that's as big a statement as there is any, as far as I'm concerned, because I think every single Rangers fan out there that has been on social media or that I've spoken to have said, like, as he's our best player, he should be starting, he should be in the squad, but Russell Martin will be probably playing Joe Rothwell instead, or do you know what I mean? So, it's his own funeral. So it's another, maybe not the final nail, but it's another nail in his coffin as far as I'm concerned.
Yep. Mitch, just before I come to you, mate, on your points for it, I just wanted to point out we've got just nearly about 600 people watching us, and it's every single one of you is appreciated. Thanks for tuning in and listening to what we've got to say. The Rangers Journal is actually on pretty much every single night of the week. We do a lot of interviews, we do a lot of specials, scouting videos, a lot of stuff in tactics. Get exclusive interviews on occasion as well. And we've got one next week with a guy called Ross Parr, who's going to be releasing a book about Rangers, being the first to 50 championships. So we'll be interviewing Ross and promoting his book with him next week. However, there's 77 watching on YouTube and over 500 watching on Twitter. And I'll be honest with you, the people that are watching on Twitter aren't making us any money. And I'd be more than grateful if you would take the time to run over to YouTube and like and subscribe to the channel. You can set your alert button so you'll get notifications when we come live, and you can tune in via YouTube. The more you tune in via YouTube, you help us get a wee bit of money, and the more money we get, the better the software we can produce, and the better that we can make these podcasts for you. So if you wouldn't mind just like and subscribe, it would always be appreciated. Mitch, going to kind of, with Dino there, Curry made a good point there, which doesn't happen very often. This was actually one that was
the one where he was talking about two on top again, was it?
No, it wasn't the one about Durex being the shirt sponsor of Ibrox or Rangers either. So we dropped points. Martin's done if Raz is not the squad. Surely to goodness, if we do not win on Saturday and Russell Martin is dropped, which is the guy who's widely appreciated to be our best player, surely to goodness, time's up.
Do you know, this is where we see what the stones of those upstairs are made of within the club at the moment, whether that be the 49ers or Patrick Stewart or Thelwell or Purdy. Somebody has to sit the two of them down like they're a pair of school wains and belt them both in the back of the head and tell them, you're wrong, you're here to January whether you want to be or not, you're here until, well, probably next weekend, but either way, yous have both got a job to do, and it's time for the pair of yous to be professional. We don't know the ins and outs of obviously what's been on behind the scenes between the pair of them, or what's led to the problem getting, and let's call a spade, getting so out of hand as it is now, so early in the season. I mean, the other thing that I can logically think is that he's found out that, Nico's used real milk in his cereal or something like that in the morning. Like, because how do you get to this point when you've only been the manager of the club for, 3 months? How do you get to this point with a player who is arguably our best asset on the squad? He is now a proven, beloved Belgian international who, right up until at the end, obviously the game of the weekend, midweek, sorry, quite clearly looks a shoe-in to go to the World Cup. So how can if you're sitting in a room and you're pointing the finger at everybody else going, no, it's you, and you that's the problem. You need to remember there's 9 fingers pointing back to you, or if you're from Croy, there's 10 fingers pointing back to you. But Russell Martin eventually has to sit down as an adult, let alone as a football manager. As an adult, he has to sit down and say to himself, I've quite clearly got a talented kid here who has the world at his feet and who can make this club a shed load of money come 12 months' time. Let's get even a 1-year contract extension. Let's get a 1-year contract extension drawn up, get it done, get him off to the World Cup with 2 years in his contract, give the club security. As a manager, I will give you the security of you will play X number of minutes between now and the World Cup, barring injuries and suspensions, etc. And we will make sure that come this time next summer, we put Nico Raskin in the greatest shot window that we can, so you can go and perform and have a great World Cup and we make some good money. But instead, we've got a manager who is running about acting like a petulant child, who won't admit that they're wrong, but equally, we've got a player running about who is saying one thing in the media, his family have said another thing in the media, but we don't know what's been said between player and manager to get to here. I think this is one of these really weird situations where there's four sides to the story. There's the player side, the manager side, the club side, and somewhere in the middle is the truth, which is the fourth side to the story. But to get 3 months into the job and you've fallen out with players like Hamza Agaman before he's left now, again, make of that situation what we will. The only player that so far that Martin's had anything positive to say about, obviously in terms of departures, was Dessers. And I'm not being funny, but Dessers, by all accounts, from anybody that's coached him so far, obviously at the club, everybody said he's one of the most consummate professionals that you can meet. You might not like him or love him as a player, but as a human being, he turns up to work, gets his job done, and until such time as he's told that he's not going to be working for you any longer, he'll give you his all while he's there. Now, it would, for me, everything that we know about Nico, obviously, from people who've coached him, etc., everything we know about Nico, it would suggest that he's either suddenly went bipolar over the summer, or something's fundamentally changed, and the only change that we all know about is a managerial change and a coaching staff change. So at that point, again, it all comes down to just be adults. Everybody's going to have to sit down and accept it until at the very least January, Nico's here. And he's a huge saleable asset for the club. So Russell Martin needs to get out of Nico's way, and he also has to get out of the club's way at that point. And if the two of them can't confide their differences and make it all up, or even if the senior player leadership team can't get this to work, then those upstairs need to intervene and simply say, look, Perry's, yous are a pair of school wains, belt round the back of the head for you, belt round the back of the head for you, get on with your job, the pair of you.
Brilliant, mate. Well, listen, I'll do a wee plug for the pod tomorrow night. I think we're going to be on tomorrow night. I couldn't tell you exactly what time. Maybe Scott could put it up in the comments, but tomorrow night's episode, I believe, is going to be pretty much all about Nico Raskin. I'm sure we talk about this. Doug's made a point that Russell Martin's probably going to give a hard time tomorrow in his press conference about this decision to leave him out the squad. So I'm sure the podcast will be very much worth watching tomorrow night. Conscious of time, guys, I've just got one wee question here. I'm sorry if I didn't get to everybody's question. I appreciate everyone's contribution that they made in the chat tonight. This is just one here from Scottish Ray. I'll come to you first of all, Kev. Thanks for your time tonight, mate. And what do you think the score will be on Saturday?
I mean, I was more positive before I seen that Raskin news, but I'm probably going to go with 3-1 Rangers. I think we're going to get the win that is required.
Brilliant, mate. Thank you. And Scotty's helped me out as he always does. Lunchtime tomorrow, 12 noon for that Nico Raskin podcast. Thank you. Dino, the score tomorrow, the score is Saturday, sorry. And thanks very much for your time this evening, mate.
Thank you. Pleasure and privilege as always. I think Hearts will win 2-1.
Random Madness, who seems to know who I am but will not reveal who they are, thinks they'll win 2-0. Mitch, last but not least.
Hopes and prayers, mate. We're going for 3-0 to Rangers.
Not Hearts, as Stephen thinks here.
No, Stephen and Dino, like the pair of them need to take themselves to negative Nancy's corner. But Dino's only doing this because he's not had a barber's cut there. He's trying to get a haircut like mine.
That's not a hair. You can't use the word cut when you describe your hair, mate. It's just out of control growth.
It's out of control pubes before they discovered wax.
Right. Anyway. Thank you, everyone that's tuned in tonight. Obviously, like and subscribe on YouTube. Thanks for everyone that's taking the time to tune in. And always remember that every night is a Rangers strong night. Take care. Good night.